Welcome to Breakout 2. So typically, after the panel conversations, we'll have breakout sessions, and this is where we have a bit more conversations. It's a lot more interactive than a panel discussion, right? So not just a download. And this theme is co-designing impact with communities, right? So today, earlier, we heard a lot from panel 1, panel 2, about the need to work in intersections, right? With practitioners, with funders, with community members. And this particular breakout session will focus on how can we involve community members, not just in the evaluation or the reporting stages, but in the entirety of the evaluation, right? From the upstream, from the needs assessment spaces. I'm Ming Fang, and I'll be your host for today. I'm with the philanthropy team at the Majurity Trust, and I've been looking to build thriving, connected communities through a place-based manner, right? And a lot of it requires working deeply, not just for community members. That's not our hope. Our hope is to work with community members. And today's topic is close to heart, right? Because we're here to reimagine what it looks like to build an iterative process around processes, just as Nira had mentioned, right? And I think we don't proclaim to know all the answers today. The invitation is for you to come in, to reflect together, to ideate and engage in conversations with each other, as well as our speakers, right? And we might just arrive at the answers collectively. And joining us to share their rich insights are two speakers, Robin and Shirun, both of whom bring very deep experiences from very different vantage points. So Dr. Robin Tan is a Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies. Oops. Could I go to the next slide, please? Can you help me with this clicker? Previous slide, please. So Dr. Robin Tan is a Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies, and what's striking in her experience is that she's worked with various social service agencies, policymakers and funders, and not just whether programs have worked, right, but figuring out what works, for whom, under what conditions, and why. And her lens on theory-driven evaluations, especially in realist approaches, offers us insight into the complexity of impact measurement. Today, we also have Lin Shuyun, founder and executive director of Three Pumpkins. Shuyun's work lives in the intersection of spaces of arts, community, and education. And through Tak Takut Kids Club, TDKC, which some of us may be familiar with, she's been building ecosystems of care for children aged between 7 to 14 in Boon Lay, and is also a grantee partner of the Majurity Trust. And we hope that their stories and insights will be able to offer us some inspiration for our work with communities. So just to give a bit of context to the format for today, here's how we'll be spending the next hour and a half. We'll begin with a 45 minutes sharing or so by Robin and Shirun, and we'll also have a bit of interactive conversations. Thereafter, we'll have a 30 minutes Q&A, and then we'll wrap with a final closer. Sounds good? All right. So without further ado, I'll pass the time to Robin, who will bring us through some of her work.
Hi, hello. Happy to see familiar faces and new ones here today. Also happy to be sharing, sharing the space with Shirin, whom I've wanted to meet for a long time. So finally we have the opportunity to co-share the space over here. So what I'll do for the earlier segment is to go through, bring us back to the nuts and bolts of looking at what a typical program trajectory will look like, and what is the role of research and evaluation we can play in this space. And also, if we are going to take a participatory approach, participatory research, or introduce participatory methods, what would it look like in the process? So with this background in mind, Shireen will bring to you the real-world case examples from her projects at Three Pumpkins to share with you the real experience of incorporating a participatory approach and engaging with the children and their families. All right, so with this, I'm going to start. Okay, yeah, all right. All right, okay, I'm going to start with this. So I hope this kind of staircase analogy resonates with the social service leaders here and the practitioners amongst you today. So this typically maps out what a program, a service, and an intervention, and how it develops over time. All right, and the corresponding activities you see at the bottom are types of research and evaluation activities that you can do to collect data, Yeah, we heard a lot about data collection at every point of the journey that can help us to improve decisions at every step of the way. Yeah, why I want to introduce this is because this is what a typical program development can look like, and I hope this resonates with you. I'll walk you through some of these steps. So first, we often start with needs assessment. So, well, perhaps needs assessment has also been criticized to adopt a more deficit-focused lens. Now we are also talking about not just assessing needs, but identifying assets in the community, and what are the gaps in current policy and practice. And with assessing needs comes how we define the problem. It's very important how the problem is framed, because that sets the stage for what the solutions might look like in stage 2. This is where you can design new novel programs to address the identified problems, or you might adopt an evidence-based program that has worked elsewhere. All right, so these are something to consider when we think about what the design of the possible solution can look like. As we move on, you might be ready to implement your pilot program or an evidence-based program that you might decide to adapt to the local context. And then you continue with this implementation. Yeah, so you might ask, why is 3 and 4 kind of the same thing? They read like the same thing. Well, I deliberately put it down as such, is that because pilot implementation sometimes is not a one-off event, right? I think in the local context, when we structured funding into like a 1+2 year arrangement, it might look like a pilot program is supposed to end in a year. But according to implementation science research, for complex interventions, sometimes it might take 3 to 5 years for a pilot program to actually stabilize before it is ready for outcome evaluation or for impact measurement. All right, so this is a cycle that goes on, a continuous cycle to improve the program design and the program delivery. All right, and as you move on to stage 5, the program could have reached steady state, and this is where you might want to consider, it's time for us to consider outcome evaluation. It's time for us to consider building evidence base for this program, right? We want to evaluate whether this program works or not. We want to establish the program effectiveness. And often this is where the attention is. Impact measurement is usually at stage 5. And for stage 6 is about bringing the program to scale, to spread across different organizations, all right, or across in different backyards. All right, so I think the point I want to bring back to this session is I want to make 2 points here. First is about impact measurement, right? So this session is titled Co-Designing Impact with Communities. And often when we think about impact, somehow the preoccupation is with measurement at stage 5, outcome evaluation. And this is largely driven by funding, because this is primarily driven by policymakers and funders who want answers to the million-dollar question, does the program work, yes or no? So a lot of preoccupation is at stage 5, but looking at this staircase analogy, you realize that there are many, many instances whereby research and evaluation can come in the earlier process to give us data, to collect data in a systematic way to help us improve decisions at every step of the way. And impact is not just created at outcome evaluation. Impact has to be considered at the get-go, when we are entering the community, when we're assessing the needs, identifying assets. So impact is a cumulative process that has to start right at the get-go, right? So this is the first point I'm going to make. The second point is about co-design. So in all honesty, this entire process can be done in a non-participatory way, right? You technically do not really need to involve the individuals and the communities you work with. It can be entirely led by the practitioner, the researcher, or even the policymakers or the funders, right? So you technically do not need to involve the individuals and the communities. Well, perhaps their involvement is more as the subject of your intervention, but not really in the process of defining what the problem is, not in terms of co-designing the solution with them. Okay, so if we are going to make changes to this, if we are going to introduce participatory methods into this, what would this look like, all right? So I'm going to move on to this. What is participatory research and what are some participatory methods? Okay, so before I go into some definitions to kind of set the scene, can I just ask the audience, how many of you have done participatory research or have tried to introduce some participatory methods in your work with individuals and communities? Yeah. Would you like to say something? Yes. Sorry for putting you in a spot. Yes. Yes. Can you tell us your name and your organization? Yeah. Yes.
Solutions, and then trying to decide on outcomes which they themselves feel is appropriate, relevant for what they hope to achieve. Of course, we do need to moderate a little bit, especially when managing our various stakeholders' interests, needs lah. But we try our best to understand from the participants themselves the desired change they hope to see, and then we will then see internally how we can co-create solutions. Either internally, then we check in with them, or a few different approaches to it. Like this whole spectrum of how involved you want them to be in the process.
Okay, so you have done this in terms of co-defining the problem or the issue at hand, and also in co-designing of the solution.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
correct.
all right. Thank you. Yes. Is there another brave soul out there? Would you like to share your experience in terms of doing participatory research? Or engaging in participatory methods?
Thanks, Ming Fang.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Robin. I didn't really catch your question. Your question was...
Yeah, would you like to share...
I was busy taking notes, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't catch it.
Yeah, would you like to share your experiences in using participatory approaches when
Sure.
working with individuals, communities?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wilson. I'm from Skillseed. I think very much like what Brian shared earlier, our experience is a lot in the solutioning side of the house. So we work with families and individuals who are from, I suppose, vulnerable communities. And what we do is that we co-design, co-lead, and co-facilitate trails in their own neighborhoods, where I prefer to call them primary stakeholders, or our community guides. That's a clearer term. They actually share their own stories, their own lived experiences, the struggles, but really moving beyond just the needs and the gaps and the challenges, really helping for those of us who go on the trails understand their aspirations, their strengths, their assets, the capital forms that flow within the community. I could go on and on, but I shall not. That's our, I would say, limited experience that we have. Yeah.
Okay,
I hope
thank you.
that helps.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anyone out there is trying to embark on this process of introducing participatory approaches in your organization, and you would like to share with us a little bit of your startup journey? Okay, maybe more later. All right. I thought just to put out some, not so much of definitions, but what exactly does it entail? All right. So some of you might be quite new to this topic. So in terms of participatory research, it is co-creating the knowledge, right, with individuals and communities with direct lived and living experience. So they are the persons that are closest to the subject matter. And this is often done in collaboration. So earlier on in panel 2, they talk about the intersection, right? So the intersection between communities, researchers, practitioners, and also funders, who are funders or policymakers who are decision makers because they apply the findings to make decisions. So it's about co-construction of this research of knowledge with the communities. And the thing is, they are involved, okay, in some, if not all, aspects of the research process. So the research process is quite a long one. It starts with identifying what the problem is, framing the problem. It also starts with what the scoping of the study might look like, what is the research design, how do you go about collecting data, whether is it to administer surveys, conduct interviews or focus group discussions, and also analyzing the data, how do you sense-make the data together with the community, and then how do you report and disseminate. So basically, it's not just about getting them on board, but also building the capability building of these individuals or communities to be able to engage in the research process. So I'd like to highlight. So basically, community-based participatory approach, CBPR, is one such means that is very focused in building the capacity and the capability of communities in the research process. So before we engage them in the process, we need to train them to become researchers. So usually for community members, they are excellent in terms of data collection because they know who we should speak to. They're able to identify who are these key informants in the community you ought to engage to. And they are also a diverse group. So they are very well versed to tell you who you should speak to, who are the underserved groups, who are the hard to reach and under the radar communities to reach out to, which as an outsider, you don't have privy to this information. So they hold on to a lot of knowledge that we can tap on them in the process. And of course, to sense make what the data is telling us. All right? The goal here is not knowledge for knowledge's sake, it's really for actionable insights for change. So the thing is, there are two things here. You're going to build ownership at the get-go, ownership of what the problem or the issue will look like, and also what the buy-in. You want to get the buy-in right at the beginning to what the solutions might look like, because you're likely going to involve the community in terms of what your solution is, and this is to give your idea, your solution, a reasonable chance of success. All right? So, well, participatory research is an umbrella term, right? So if you navigate the literature, it can look a bit unwieldy because there are many terms and jargons being thrown up. But basically, participatory research is an umbrella term, and the more commonly used ones are the CBPR and the PAR, Participatory Action Research, and the community-based participatory research. So they all have nuances or differences in how they anchor themselves in literature, but by and large, they all hold these similar principles in how they talk about engaging individuals and communities in research. Okay, so this is another table to kind of summarize the differences between a conventional research and participatory research, which I won't go into, but I just want to emphasize that for a conventional research, the principal investigator is usually driving the research, and this is driven by funding, professional interests, and also institutional agenda of what you want to achieve. Whereas when you engage the communities, they are co-producers of the research. They are involved in every stage possible, I've mentioned. And also this becomes an iterative and flexible process because you're not involving just one person, it's a community. It could be a number of individuals coming together. And you do need to have a longer runway because you can imagine you need to kind of incorporate this participatory approach in the process, in how you make decisions, how you manage disagreements and conflict, right? And action is integral to the process because in a conventional research, you almost never go back to the individuals and the communities you collect your data from to report your findings. They almost never hear from you again after that survey or that interview. But for participatory research, because they are key to the process and because you involve them right at the start, you need to involve them in terms of what your solution will look like and in terms of how it's going to be implemented. Okay, and here the emphasis is on both process and also outcomes. Process in terms of building the capability of the individuals and the community. Okay, so this is interesting because it's about the spectrum of participation. How participatory is participatory research? Right, so the literature conceptualizes a lot of different frameworks on what participation can look like. So it is not dichotomous. It is not participation versus non-participation. Perhaps somewhere in the middle, yeah? So this is by International Association for Public Participation. So, well, as you move from the left to the right, you can see that there's increasing impact on the decision, all right? So I can start, for example, for the first one, informing. In this case, the organizers or the stakeholders have a particular agenda, and they might just wish to gather the citizens together to disseminate this information. There's no real need for participation here, All right, so as you move to the left, you see consulting and involving. Organizers here similarly already have in mind what the agenda would look like. Yeah, they might want to get some feedback, but still they have a lot of control on what they do with the feedback that they gather from the citizens. All right, so as you move on to collaborating and empowering, it starts to shift because now it's not just organizers defining what the agenda is, defining what the problem is. They want inputs from the citizens of how they frame the problem, and also to involve them in terms of the solutions. So as you move from left to right, there are 3 points to highlight. First, citizens have an increasing power in terms of decision making. Right, that's number one. There's also increasing communication between the stakeholders and the citizens as you move from left to right. Communication meaning that there's more exchange of information, more flow of information from stakeholders to citizens. And lastly, in terms of resources, citizens also get more resources as you move from left to right. As you can see, citizens will have control over how resources are being allocated, are being used. All right, so of course the question you might have, I have at the back of our minds is, where are we on this journey in terms of the work we do? So I think later on, Shirin has an activity whereby she will ask you to reflect where do you think you or your organization is at in terms of this journey, and how can we move along this continuum. All right. Okay, another one here is the Sherry Einstein's Ladder of Citizen Participation. I need to mention this because this is so commonly cited in citizens' engagement literature. She talks about this metaphorical ladder whereby you have different rungs representing increasing levels of agency and power as you move from bottom to top. Okay, so basically what is different here is that this has an emphasis on the redistribution of power, which is a little bit silent in the previous slide that I have. This emphasizes on the redistribution of power such that you include those that are presently excluded in the process. So you intentionally include them in the decision-making process and bring them along. So these citizens could be your marginalized groups, they could be your hard-to-reach populations or under-the-radar groups. They are not traditionally or typically engaged into the process. You kind of bring them in intentionally. And so I think Einstein also mentioned that participation can be empty and frustrating if they are not included in the process in a meaningful way. So what would look like is tokenism. So something along rungs 3, 4, and 5, where you do a lot of seemingly participatory approaches, but it doesn't land well. So, for example, consultations. There could be a lot of consultations with individuals, communities, but it can look like a consultation to convince session because you already have an agenda in mind. You are trying to convince people of the importance of your agenda rather than getting them to like co-define or frame the problem with the communities and individuals. All right, so this is what it can look like. And the emphasis here is really the redistribution of power. Okay, so I think with this, okay, Shirin will then bring you through some of these exercises whereby we would take a look at where we are on this journey, how are we ready to redistribute the power. All right, so, all right, Shirin.
Thank you, Robin. Hi everybody, I'm Shirin. It's really nice to hear from Robin. I've been learning a lot from her the past 2 weeks when we're discussing this because I'm from an arts background. So this is like, I do it as an art, means I do it by intuition for the last 9 years. Then when I saw the slide, then I realized that, oh, actually that's what I have been doing. 3 years of needs assessment at the playground, 3 years to implement the program at TTKC, and then another 3 years to refine the program. Now we are going to the next 3 years. So we are coming to bring the science in. So this is really helpful for me. I think earlier this morning, Justin made a very important point. So he said, besides the arts and the science, there's also the values. So it really is about our own value and our organization value, whether we believe in citizen power. If you don't believe in it, then all that we are saying on the art and the science of it actually is just difficult to implement, right? So now we're coming to, let's look at this quote. This is also from Sherry Arnstein. Citizen participation is citizen power. Power needs to be distributed to the have-nots so that they are deliberately included in the future. How does this statement make you feel? So there are these emojis here, and you will see them around the room. You spot them around the room? There's one there. I don't know, I mean, what does it make you feel? Maybe you feel inspired, motivated, like, yes, this is it, right? Then there's another one over there. Maybe it makes you, this statement make you feel like, okay, indifferent. Then there's another emoji here. Puzzled, uncertain. Then there's another one at the back there. At the back of the room over there. So there's an emoji, is like feeling of dismay. Like, why? No lah. Why should citizens have power? They all don't really know why. Yeah, maybe we have a better idea. Yeah. So now we will need you to stand up. Make your choice. How does this statement make you feel? Yeah? Okay, let's go. Inspired. Motivated. Yes? Oh, yeah, you can. I see a pattern. Yeah, there is. So there's this statement here, and choose the emoji that represents how you feel about the statement. So you see like different groups around the corner. Yeah, there's only a single person there. Are you? Oh, yeah, you're not part. Oh, can join also. Jen, join. Yeah, if you're any, I mean, I think it's quite good. Our organizers from the TMT join this also. Come. Yeah, you can also stand. Make your stand. How does this make you feel? Quite well distributed. I think we have like people counting, right? Is there there's an in-between here? Oh, okay, yeah. We have most number actually here. Is it? Am I right? I think this is quite... 11 there, okay. It's okay lah. Yeah, take your time to count. Yeah, it's okay. We kind of like by intuition lah. Yeah, later we can get the data.
So 15 in the inspired realm.
Okay, we have 15.
Puzzled with 11, and then the 8, around 8, and
yeah.
nobody at the shocked
Nobody
face.
at the shocked space. Okay, all right. Yeah. Anybody want to like have a representative over there? Okay.
Welcome.
Great. Yeah.
I assume a single dimension.
Okay, I think we will have some sharings. Maybe we can hear some sharing from the most motivated group lah. Yeah. Anybody want to share?
I want to share.
Okay, sure.
Exactly my it really described me lor. So I'm T Project Jun Chua. So anybody heard of the T Project or not? So I before I start T Project, I'm the have-not law, former sex worker of 20 years, transgender, I am proud transgender. So I should be, in certain people's mind, classified under have-nots. But if powers, thank God, at that time the climate is very different. So I give myself a chance, I give myself an opportunity. Nobody give me one. Is I give myself one. Now I started Singapore's first and only ever shelter for the homeless transgender community. Singapore, I started Alisha Community Centre, counselling program for my own community. And the difference is because every Tom, Dick, Harry organization also got counselling service, right? So my counselling service is different. It target the my community target the transgender, my has not community. And my counselors are professional and they also identify as trans themselves. So I give back the power to the have not. Because if you go back 11 years, 12 years ago, there's no trans-specific social service support in Singapore. But then, since the start of the project, there are more trans-led organizations. So I see, I will not, so now I'm the have law. I create my own opportunity. I feel this whole thing is very top-down. You're talking about participatory. You only want the have not to participate, and then you design something. Not only do I want to participate, I also want to be the leader of what you design. Can or not? Yes. Hey, only one person clap leh. Voila.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, it reminds me when I was younger, I was also quite inspired by a group in Thailand. They are called Empower. So they visited a bar. It's called the Can Do Bar. So they open up a bar and then they actually empower the sex workers to run the bar as businesses, as business owners. Yeah, it's called Can Do Bar. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody from the inspiring group wants to inspire?
Thank you, and I was inspired. Okay. Hi, I'm Moonlake Lee from Unlocking ADHD. Again, the have-nots. Okay, I'm a late diagnosed ADHD myself, and really it's a story of the community, those who have ADHD stepping out, doing our own ground-up research, so that we can use that to ground the advocacy in data. And really pleased to announce that last week we got our IPC status. And many thanks to Majurity Trust for being one of our key supporters. But I think you made a very good point that it's not just participatory, which we are doing, but we are also empowered because we are the ones, half our board have ADHD, more than half our team have ADHD as well. And it's really the lived experience combined with evidence-based that is looking at it from a very comprehensive way to create that change. So yes, thank you for doing this workshop.
Thank you. Okay, we will go to the other group. Maybe we go to this group, okay? Yeah, anybody who have uncertainties that you want to share about this statement? Yes.
Maybe less uncertainty and more question. Ooh, a lot of feedback. I think there's a lot of questions I have, right? Like citizen participation in what sense? If we use the IIP2 spectrum, then on where is this participation supposed to be placed? And then what do we mean by power? Power in decision making, and at what levels of society? Is it at the program level, community level, grassroots level, government level? I think there are a lot of questions, and I think that the level of participation and power in decision making also depends on the kind of implications that the decision has. So which is why I'm a bit more, I think I'm questioning, less of, if not, I'll be in the inspired bunch. Yeah.
Sorry. Hi, I'm so thinking, just processing. Oops. Okay, feedback. Okay. Just processing that statement because in where I'm working with children of underprivileged homes, like rental flats and all, so obviously I agree that we need to distribute the power to them, but at the same time they are young, right? At the same time the families are in crisis mode, so the thing I'm thinking is at what stage, at what point, obviously I want to see these kids being raised and then they come back to serve and empower the rest, right? But that would be a long-term thing. So it's the how and it's the at what level, yeah.
I think similar to her point, I'm Cohen from Trans Befriender, so we serve transgender youth. So similar to what June has mentioned, yes, we are the have-nots, but because of the population we serve, they are youth. They do not, I think for me it's more of how much control should we give them. If you give them 100% control, then you will see a lot of us standing, outside of government buildings protesting, rather than doing more advocacy from a Singapore point of view. Yeah. So that's my question here. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I can address some of that in a later sharing. To share a concept of scaffolding. Yeah, it is a very long journey, and then how do we scaffold that? Yeah. Okay, let's go to any more burning I want to share in this group. No. Is he in that? No, are you? No. Okay. Okay, over there. Yeah.
The ones at the back. All right.
Okay, I think I connect very much with Brian from South Central, his comment. So okay, fundamentally, personally, I think I will be there. But then I also recognize that there are different levels of power distributions. Like, so let's say it's something that is within my own control, under my own authority, I think I'll be there. But I think at the same time, I'm also navigating, interacting with people at different levels, where I think overall as a society, I think we are not sharing, distributing power as much as we hope to. So then I think a bit meh is like, do I strive to the ideal of sharing power, or do I succumb to the pragmatism of I have to survive? I think that's the kind of balance I'm trying to find. So sometimes I might be fight for power, but then in the end, you say that okay, if you want to do that, you'll get not the support. Then do I still want to succumb to say, okay, I will just do, at least I can do something, rather than just fight for the ideal. So I think that's the kind of meh feeling that I'm feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, totally can empathize. I think from there, maybe I'll ask one question. So in this group, right, how many of you are founders? Okay, yeah, thanks, yeah. So maybe they can kind of like decide lah. That's what I'm just saying, yeah. Also me too. Okay, another sharing from the group?
Anyone with?
I'm Sweet Fan, I'm from Mission Health. I did feel that maybe the statement could have been co-created with everyone here first, because I don't disagree. Yeah, I do have issue with maybe the word power needs to be returned, not distributed. Actually, we have power within us. It's whether we exercise it. So distributed power needs to be practiced to be effective. So we can talk about it. We can shout about it. If we don't practice it when we're given a chance to, then we cannot complain that we do not have power. And I do resonate with quite a few of the questions brought up as well, as in, what do we mean by power? Right? You can say you want a voice, but voice without resources does nothing. So when we talk about power, what do we want? And the last thing I think I want to say is that there are too many voices. Then if you say distributed, who gets the right to say when they are the most important, they are the priority? It's very messy in the community. If you distribute everywhere and everybody has an equal say all at the same time, we will not have governance. We will not have peace. We will not move forward. Some people need to give up power at the right time for some movement to happen. And I think that is that's why I stand here. I don't disagree. I'm a founder myself, but I'm also realistic that we do live in a very good environment right now in Singapore. We didn't get here by being able to speak our own power all the time. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I think this also comes very segue very nicely into our next segment. Actually, is into self-reflection. Is actually reflecting on what kind of power that we have. Yeah, I think here we have founders. I think we have practitioners. I think we have middle managers. I feel that this room are probably all practitioners. That's why you are here, in some way. Yeah. So now is coming to a kind of self-reflection about actually what power do we hold. I mean, even if you are grant makers, you also hold some power in this, right? Okay, so please return to your seat. We'll give you a worksheet. Okay, it's a bit of work in this breakout 2 session. So we're giving out this worksheet, and if you need a pen, I think we have pens also. So this is first exercise for us. No right or wrong answer. Just something that comes to your mind quite immediately, actually. So I'll give an example here. Can be a very problematic statement also. But that's okay. I mean, we kind of keep refining our role, right? So the first is, what is your role? So for example, my role as a community worker, who do I support? I support vulnerable children. Why? Because I have the power to create a better environment for them, with them. So what is your role? Who do you support? And what power do you have? We can go to the next slide. Next slide. Thank you. Then the second question is about participation. Sometimes we look at participatory action research, right? It looks like a very complicated thing. Actually, in our daily practice, even with our family members and all, it's actually increased participation. How do you involve people a bit more? Just make it simpler for us on the ground. So now maybe your level of, so what is the level of participation in your current engagement? So maybe you do, I think most of us will be probably at consulting, at least there's some consultation. Do you aspire to move your participation a little bit higher? Yeah. It doesn't have to go immediately up to empowering. Actually, I also don't recommend it. Yeah. Because you also don't know who you are empowering. I think that's the danger, right? Yeah. Actually, in a true participatory, if this session is participatory, from the feedback that we have just now, we have changed the design of this entire session already. Because it's the feedback will inform the next action. But no, we're not making it completely participatory. So it's just so that's why I designed it more reflection-based. Just to have a show of sensing around the room, right? What are the different roles that we play in this landscape? I wonder if we might be able to find like 10 different roles. Maybe just shout out lah. Okay, I'm a community worker. Who else? Just shout out your role. Mobilizer. More? Everybody is either a community worker or mobilizer. Social worker. Teacher. Friend. Yeah, hear you correctly, friend? Okay, friend. Yes, yeah. Okay, in your role as a friend. Okay, yeah. Yes? There's a hand up, no? We need 5 more. Everybody is either a friend or a community worker or a social worker, mobilizer. A program manager, yeah. Now we have 6. 4 more. Founder. Sorry? A facilitator. I just want to call out to the people standing behind the pillar with your lanyard. Grant maker, thank you. Last one. So we have 10 rows at least in this room. Researcher? Researcher. I think there are a few researchers here. Okay, yeah. Okay, I was just saying that at the end of the day, it is about, just make it simple, is how do we increase participation? In fact, I think now with TTKC is going into the new neighborhood, I think one of the outcomes actually we want to look at is increased participation. Don't make it too complicated. Yeah, because the whole ladder actually is it takes a very long time. Yeah. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, and the next slide is talking about I think it's a very practical strategy on how we can enhance participation. How do you make people want to participate? So that's actually a kind of behavior that you want people to have, right? Assuming we all want more participation. So actually you are trying to change a behavior. So this is also something that I am recently introduced to, that I'm sharing with the room here, is looking at a combi model. So how do you change behavior? Targeted behavior is we want people to participate more. Yeah? So we look at capability. Do the participants have ability to participate in what we want to do? First thing, one of the things we always think about is language. I think it's one of the very particular things about Singapore. We have different groups of people speaking different language. Yeah. Number two, O is opportunities. Are there external factors that affect the access? Can the person come to a focus group discussion, for example? Yeah. Usually we don't really see this because a lot of our outcomes is working on the people, but we actually don't work on the environment around them. So we usually don't look at environment around them. So there's opportunity. Then M is their motivation. Somehow in Singapore, we always think motivation is somebody's attitude. Yeah, whether the attitude good or not good. But actually it's not. Motivation a lot of times is about relationship. Yeah, and it has a need to have a meaning to the person. It's just like all of us in this room. Why are we motivated to come here? We're not here for cash vouchers, right? We always give like cash voucher, then people will be motivated. Not always like that. So we look at COM. What are the things that we can work on to increase participation? Let's go to the next slide, please. So I'll give an example of how we do very organic kind of needs assessment at TTKC. Actually, when I was, even before Tatakud Kids Club, I was doing needs assessment at the playground. I was just really playing with kids at the playground for 3 years, and different playgrounds also. So it is not a very neat kind of needs assessment. You actually get all sorts of different data, but at the back end, that's where we filter data. So the responsibility is not on the participants to give me the right answer. They will give me like all sorts of things, then I have to kind of pick it up. Yeah. So you see in TTKC, currently we are already in the 6th year, so we don't really have so much of you can draw at whatever you want kind of wall. But when we started, the wall was a place where children could just draw anything that they want. So why we use this? Because the capability of the children is that they just like to draw, and they express a lot in their drawing, right? So if you are dealing with a group of children who has difficulty with language, so if you are doing a lot of conversation stuff, you're not going to get a lot of things. Yeah, so we use doodling. So in this doodle, you already see like you're doing some math. Then we can start to realize that, okay, this one cannot do multiplication, that kind of thing. Yeah? Then we can pick up their needs. Then we have some drawings, and through the drawings, they also talk about their lives. So from here, we actually can pick up the certain data that we want. It's more, we need to be quite clear about what we want to pick up. Yeah. So looking at opportunity-wise, actually, we create a space where children can freely draw. So we actually create the environment for them to give that feedback. What is the motivation here for the children? To want to participate in this. Sorry? It's fun, yeah. It's fun. We always forget that it's fun. I think earlier this morning people were saying, fun, right? No, play. Let's play, yeah. People like to have fun in their lives, especially Singapore, very stressful. Yeah, so when we design something, always very serious. But actually, people want to participate because it's fun, especially for children. Yeah? Next slide. So in TTKC, we also have a lot of, we roll in this makan thing almost every day, yeah, as a community routine. So this chit-chat over meals, if you look at capability-wise, actually, we're always building the children's capability to cook. And they're very motivated because when they learn to cook, they can do it on their own, at home, then they can impress their friends, so they get very motivated. So we actually create a routine so that this needs assessment actually can be done every day. So what we usually would, I think, discover during meal times is like children will really share very freely about what's happening to them. So things like, I think, especially things like health issues do come up quite a bit over mealtime. It's like, yeah, I didn't sleep, or I'm feeling this pain here and there. Those things usually you might not really hear it in the arts engagement. But over food, talking about things, I think because it's related to the body, so you start to hear more about that. And also we can fold in that conversation a bit more in terms of health-related stuff. So looking at motivation, right? Actually, one of the key things over meals is that it's about relationship. So children are very, and also the adults come together because over meals you really bond. And they really like to come together because of relationship. I think relationship is the thing that we always forget in terms of what motivates people to come together. Yeah. So over the years, actually, we do build quite strong relationship. As you see, these two types of needs assessment, right, actually is very, the people maybe they don't feel like they are in part of a survey group or something like that, yeah. So as we build trust over time, we then could do something that's more targeted, in the intentional. That means we'll do survey, we'll do focus group discussion. And I think that the relationship, the trusted relationship as a foundation is quite important to get a very authentic data. So the next video I want to show you is that we actually took up a challenge to look at targeted behavior change in terms of children making better food choices. Then the way that we do needs assessment become very different because we already have the trust of the community. I think everybody is like, okay, let's go and do this together. Next slide, please.
Give us a second, we are loading the video.
Welcome to the Better Eat Better show. I wonder what type of drink.
Sorry, we're working through the technicalities. If you just give us a second, thank you.
Question while they are sorting out the technical things. The next question is on the how can is it under needs assessment, right? Oh, is it co-solution? Oh, no, needs assessment. Oh, you already have notes, yeah. If you are not, you have not put it down. So there's on the first page, right, under needs assessment, by applying the COMBI concept, how can you increase your participation in terms of needs assessment? So looking at the capability of your of the people that you work with or are friends with, what are the environment, external factors that you can change or design, and what is their motivation? How can you increase the participation? Maybe this time I'll also open up to the floor if anybody wants to share something. Robin also, something about needs assessment and COMBI. Yes? Behavior. Behavior, the behavior change, yeah. But you look at the COM, yeah. So the behavior that we want is actually, we want more participation, yeah.
I guess with my experience of trying to apply the Combi framework to some of the research projects is that my observation is that the C, the capability and the motivation tend to be the lower hanging fruits. So there are a lot more programs, interventions targeting to build one's capability. Okay, for example, well, if workers are retrenched, looking for a new job, you talk about reskilling, upskilling, you know, that's capability building, right? And then, okay, motivation, well, we give them motivational interviewing, right, as an intervention. And often the O, opportunity, is the tougher nut to crack, right? And that is certainly not a low-hanging fruit, yet a lot of our interventions, programs, services tend to overlook opportunities. So opportunities, in other words, means creating the right conditions or context such that the person is able to unlock the capability and the motivation. And that is something that I don't think we do enough. Yeah, and that constrains people's ability to make decisions and make behavioral change. Yeah, and we don't look into that enough. Is that what you have experienced in also trying to apply Combi's?
I think so, because also I think it's guided by funding, because funding tend to look into capability also. Yeah, how are the abilities of the people we work with increase, right? So funding will always look into that. Yeah, but opportunities in terms of actually how do we create like things like strengthening ecosystem, things like creating access, actually needs quite a lot of resources, but usually funding don't look into that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So one of the example of TTKC, how we create opportunities, is that actually we reverse a kind of usually for children and youth services, it's like the parents first, then the child, right? The parents need to agree, then the child comes in. So we created the access actually for the children. Children come in first, because we are working with kids who loiter in the street and their friends. Then the parents comes next. So then we create the opportunity for them to participate. Mm.
So in your experience, does the COM needs to come together for behavioral change, for the B to happen?
I feel that a lot of the power that I hold actually is in the O.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually how we change their external environment. And I think that is where we can come in quite strongly. But strangely, usually funding don't look into that. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm. Oh, it's ready? Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, the video.
Right, thank you for your patience. We'll watch the video.
Hi guys, welcome to the Better Eat Better show. I wonder what type of drinks you buy during recess time.
Milo, Yakult, and Milo, ice lemon tea, Milo, Hokage and Milo, hot Milo. I buy soya bean, ice lemon tea, ice peach tea.
Oh no! Just how much sugar are you guys consuming?
Welcome to the Sugar Shocker Show.
Get ready to be
Suck. Today we're gonna find out how much sugar we take in a day. Huh? This is 25 grams and this is 2 packs of Milo. What? So much? About no! This is absolutely madness! Madness!
Edited version of our, we have a Better Eat Better health campaign show that's done with the kids, yeah. So you see that in the beginning when we have the survey, right? Children are not afraid to give wrong answers. It's just like very authentic answers, yeah. But if they that group was talking quite a lot about actually how do we scaffold that whole ladder of participation. Maybe I give a scaffolding concept. Actually, I think it's education. One of education is from the education sector, used mostly in the preschool. Yeah. So what is it that a child can do with some assistance and cannot do, right? So when we intervene is when they can do with some assistance. And when they can do already, you remove that scaffold. Then they go up and up and up. So for example, let's say in the whole spectrum of participation going to empowerment, actually one of the key things is actually aligning values. It's a value segment. Yeah, because you're basically dealing with everybody with different values. So how do you align that community values? Actually, that takes quite many years. So that's part of the scaffolding also. Yeah. I'll give an example of a community development project I did before without even knowing it's community development. So this is actually, this was more in the artist days. So I was working in the island of Bintan. So this is a group. They are actually a dying opera troupe, Mak Yong. They're doing an art form called Mak Yong. So the masters were already like in their 70s and 80s. They perform all over the world in international arts festival. So the only people they don't perform for are their own people. So the whole island actually never seen Mak Yong before for many, many years because nobody could afford to invite them. Because to perform, you need 30 people, they need to rest for 2 weeks and rehearse. So what I did with the artists is actually we just did a very simple intervention. Invite them to perform for their own people every year, sometimes twice a year. And then every year we go in, actually there's a lot of different conflict. So a lot of conflict management, some are about building capability of people to set up a stage, that sort of things. So this thing actually took 14 years. So when we left the community, it was a group of 18 or early 20s who took over the art form. Yeah, so the last time I saw them, just quite long ago, was that the youngsters actually were the ones who were performing. Yeah, so that whole journey actually took 14 years. So comm development is, that whole ladder is many years of work. And a lot of time comm development work, right, I always say is actually how do we steal time? Cleverly steal time. Just now, I think Robin was saying it's a 3-year process. I think it is possible to design very specific outcomes to these 3 years. First 3 years is needs assessment. Actually, as a funder, what can you expect from that? Then the next 3 years, we come up with a certain program. Yeah, I think it's how we understand the process clearer and break it down for the funders to understand also. So this is scaffolding. I'll give an example next. Yeah, so this is something about, I was just saying that this is from the education sector, right? What they cannot do, what they can do with some assistance is where we can come in and then support. And then they can do independently, yeah. So I'll give an example of the TTKC Sandwiches Club. They are a group of children who has decided that every excursion, since we are always buying bread from Sui Heng, that's not a really good thing. And since they can make bread, they will make for their friends. So every excursion, 2 hours before excursion, they will come in, they will make 40 sandwiches for their friends. So this is really like, I think at the point where children can initiate. Yeah, but actually this process also took quite long. The Better Eat Better program was 1.5 years before this happened. But even before that, there was already a lot of relationship building. Yeah. So what we scaffold along the way, the very first is actually even as basic as whether children know how to wash their hands or not. Yeah. And the whole hand washing, hygiene building also took some time. So during that time, you cannot say that, empower the community immediately to do it, because you just do it messily, or you get like food poisoning in the whole community, that kind of thing, right? So they are not ready to do that. What they need assistance then is that actually they need to learn something about hygiene. So you need to raise the whole hygiene capability of the community at that time. And that maybe takes 6 months. So they know how to do certain things already. Then the next step you can come in is to prompt them. Okay, you guys all know how to do this already. Is there something else you want to do? So you must always think about scaffolding in your participatory process. Okay, so let's go to the next question on co-solutioning for yourself. So applying the scaffolding concept, how can we enhance participation? So at this phase now, what sort of supportive structures can you create for the people that you work with? Okay, as we reflecting, Robin, any? No, not at the moment. Okay. Also open to the floor, and maybe you want to say something about this part about applying scaffolding in co-solutioning. Hmm? Yes, yeah.
Do you look out for, because I think it's very value driven, so do you look out for people that share similar value before when you bring them in, or you're open to take anyone who is interested, and then there's certain scaffolding in preparing them to do this piece of work? So other than the residents, the team members as well.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, because I think when we first started, we don't have that resource to think about. Wow, everybody must like have the same training, then have same values come in. I think they were also driven by they want to do they have some positive impact on children and they come. I think the only way that we actually really gatekeep and control, right, is that when they come, they have to like commit to a 4-month befriending, and then they have to commit like weekly. So within 4 months, we will have like at least 16 sessions with people who are coming in, and then we can really look at whether our values align. Some people will be like, wow, this is very messy, not for me. Then they will leave, yeah. I think for staff-wise, actually, we also put out a probation kind of period, yeah. Because I think it's very hard to see whether values align through an interview. Yeah, it's really down to the ground practice, right? Are you okay with actually, your solution or what you are thinking actually does not match the community, and the values of this organization is actually we follow community. Yeah, some people may not like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, so I didn't go through the example. So the example is also based on the COM, the COMBI. This is the capability. So maybe your participant actually don't even quite understand the law that supports them. So how can we empower them? So maybe what they need at this stage, and this stage means maybe a good 1 year, 2 years, to understand certain law better. All the community actually knows this. That's one example, okay? The other one is an opportunity. Like maybe the participants can't even go out of their house independently. Then we need to create that access for them. Okay, I think this is more of the I actually don't remember why I put this. Okay, let's go next. Okay, the last part now is how do we enhance participation in MEL, in monitoring, evaluation, and learning. How do we involve the community? So I'll give an example of, next slide, how we try to do this at TTKC, because I think our values is about participatory, like how can we also, basically knowledge on all this data is actually power, because it informs a lot of what are we going to do next. Yeah, so I think that we're also thinking about how can we return this knowledge to the community and co-create with them. So this is Joanne, Joanne from Research for Impact. So last year, I think this was about maybe 5th year of TTKC already. So we have some guiding outcomes that we kind of derive over the years for TTKC. So what Joanne did was then to involve the youth. So these are also youth who have grown up with us for 4 years already, to tell them, oh, this is actually our evaluation metrics, yeah, and what they think about it. And if we roll out this survey to the children, how will the children receive it? Yeah, so youth, some of our alumni, you go to them, right, they can just give you like, oh, okay, yeah, TTKC is about autonomy, you're doing this because you are building relatedness. So this vocabulary is in them actually, yeah. They will also tell us things like, actually, your question, people don't understand. Yeah, I mean, we actually use a ACT SG tool to run through like 30 over questions with them. And then they were like, oh, okay, some of the questions actually children won't understand one. They will just give you an okay for answer. Then we were like just getting wrong data, yeah. So in MEL also, I think one of the important things for us is that when we come to a program dilemma, like we're like, okay, actually, what is our program impact really is? So I'll give an example, like in our arts program. So typically in the arts, I think we're also very informed by like SYF kind of thing, right? You want to have children do very well, dance very well, sing very well. They can go out there and perform. So that's one way that we think about arts engagement. But at TDKC, we have every Friday, we have an arts platform where children just come up and sing, and they can do stand-up comedy and all that. So we think that it's important because it's more like arts is a safe social space for children to express and support each other. But we come to a point where the adults just cannot agree. Because some feel that, okay, you want to empower kids, you have to build their excellence. Some still believe in the safe space. So then how do we evaluate and move forward? Actually, we bring the question back to the kids. So I asked them, actually, what are the adults here for? And actually then from there, we get the answer and we made a video out of it. Next slide, please. I hope the video works.
So today I'm going to talk about what is Thai.
If you want to watch these videos, they are like quite long. They're on our YouTube channel. Yeah. So I mean, basically the thing is that when we come to a certain, how do we evaluate program? Often the answer is there. Actually, the children have the answer. Then we go back to them and ask them. Yeah. So going to our second last question in the MBL. So this is really about a belief. We believe in shared learning. We believe in shared power. So how can you increase participation in the MEL? Robin?
Okay, so I reflect this in my day job as a evaluator, right? So often for evaluation, it's largely driven by funders, policymakers that are focused on accountability, right? So this morning I saw MEL, monitoring and evaluation for learning purposes. So I think that's a good shift because if you are focused on learning, you would design your monitoring evaluation in a different way from when you are doing monitoring evaluation for accountability purposes. So it's a different lens, the kind of data you collect for learning that benefits that you can translate into improving programs and services, solutions is very different from what you do for KPI reporting. Yeah, so, well, I think the question is how does the two come together? Because I think organizations, practitioners are very overwhelmed with reporting requirements. Do they want to take on more, to collect a different set of data for learning purposes? So, yeah, I think the question remains.
Okay, I think there's a last question on the sheet, and I think that is something that you can bring back. So hopefully there is also a shift from the very first answer that you were given in the worksheet. I think now we can open to the floor for any questions. Yes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Siti from Starfish Singapore. I'm just wondering, because you were saying that you actually talk to the kids and then they are happy with the program. How then do you present that happiness or the enjoyment then translate to like it's a successful program? Like, do you have like you say, actual surveys to show or numbers, how many people say, how many students say that they are happy, or how do you present that?
I think that in the beginning years when we were starting up, actually most of the data that we present is actually human stories. I think it helps that we come from the art, so we actually make a lot of videos with the kids. Yeah, then they really share. I think it's more qualitative, sorry. Yeah, I think also only in the last year we did a very quant kind of date survey. So there are like set of survey questions we basically, our current measure is more on the positive motivations. So are they improving in terms of their self-awareness, self-regulation? How are they doing in terms of social, and then in terms of their different life skills? So only last year then we have quite a set of like numbers to show lah. Yeah.
Right. So is only from the kids' perspective, or as adults you also like evaluate?
Yeah. We also evaluate adults because we also have two missions. One is on the kids, and the other is actually like the opportunity, right? It's all a system around the kids, yeah. So there's also survey with the parents. Actually, we do a lot of collaborative work with stakeholders. So we also have like SSO, school, the FSC also, yeah. And then our staff and volunteers, of course. Yeah.
I don't mean to hog, just one more question. You mentioned something about guiding outcomes when you're working with the youth for the survey, that portion. Your guiding outcomes, do you find that it changes over a period of time?
Yes. That's a tricky part, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a tricky part to explain, to have conversation with funders. But I think our experience seems to be like if we are able to articulate why you are also tracking a certain indicators, you're tracking indicators for this period of time is designed this way to look at certain outcomes, right? I think they are quite happy. You will attract a certain funders lah. I think currently so far we've been attracting funders who are, I think, more open to risk and they are open to learning. Actually, they really want to find out what's the gaps in the system. Yeah. So I think staying quite true to what you want to do, you will attract the like-minded. But moving forward, because we're also in a kind of scaling phase, we also have to deal with higher operation costs and then the type of funder that will look at numbers. I also don't know. I'm also learning how to do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Shireen. Thank you so much.
Hi. May not be related to what happened at you shared, but just thinking about, say, from today, this morning, we heard one of the panelists saying what really matters to you as a founder, right? That I could see from what you're doing in the community, looking at the kids from the playground and knowing that they're loitering around, there's no adult supervision. And so then you created this safe space where the kids come in, and over time, through the last 5-6 years, then things evolved, isn't it, in what you do in the community? So my question would be like, at one stage where you then decide to evolve, how do you then make the decision? Because I could keep this really small and tight-knitted and go really deep in my impact, but maybe just a handful of kids, right? Or I want to in our terminology, to scale up, but then it then deals with this data, that you have to do this measurement output and things like that. So I think my dilemma is that how do you then decide how you evolve from here to here, or to different, I guess, what you do at TD?
Wow, I give you a very artist answer. You ask your heart. I think the vision, I'm quite sure as a founder, your vision is clear, right? Yeah, I mean, it's almost like climbing a mountain. Like, which stage do you think that you are ready for? And then how does it align with your vision? I think for me was that I think the work came to a stage where actually we also started to discover that actually one of the main thing was about there are some gaps in terms of the case management, and then we were looking at children safeguarding, that sort of thing, which I cannot do. Yeah, then we also need to develop a team who is actually very experienced in social work and also child protection. Then I realized that, wow, this thing actually needs to grow already, and it has to grow beyond me. Yeah, I'm also thinking about succession, all the sort of things founders need to think about it, right? And also opportunities. I think there were people coming in and say that, okay, let's try to scale. And I see that scaling is important not because of scaling, but because it actually makes the work sustainable. Because the knowledge and the systems are developed. Then at that stage I thought, okay, we should just try. But I think that the attitude is also still goes back to let's play lah. Let's try lah. No harm trying. Yeah, I don't see any harm trying. So if that one fail, then we go back to the community. But I think most importantly is also when we do that kind of scaling work, right? We also have to be quite sure that it doesn't affect what we are doing currently. Yeah.
I just want to add on to the point about scaling. I think the buzzword, right, replication is on top of everybody's mind. What is successful? Okay, let's try to spread and let's try to scale in other people's backyard. But the thing is, I think for complex interventions, for example, case in point, community development work, it's not cookie cutter, right? So replication is borrowed from evidence-based medicine, whereby you can cookie cutter if it's the same. You want to take the same vaccine as everyone else because this is proven to work. But for community development, it's a complex intervention. You can't scale it in a cookie cutter form. You can't repeat success by just merely replicating what you do at TTKC in another neighborhood. It may not work. So I think what is important here is to identify the underlying mechanisms and what kind of context. So when people scale, they often think about repeating the program, but they forget that they need to create the context that enables this program to achieve success, and what are the contextual factors you need to put in place to support the program, and that's almost often overlooked. Yeah, so I think for complex intervention, it is a different set of questions. You not just ask, does the program work, yes or no? So if it works, I'm going to scale, but you need to ask a more complex question. What works for whom, under what conditions, and why, and create the conditions to make the program work. Yeah, so I think this is missing in our conversations when we talk about replication and scaling. Yeah.
If I could also just add on, I know, part of the team, right? I think scale, so my background's in social work, and then now I work with Majurity, right, which is a different kind of practitioner-funder kind of relationship, which is different sides. I think the scale question is an important one as well, because we're thinking about sustainability, like Shuri mentioned. But the type of scale matters, right? Are we scaling up? And I think, NG, that was specifically what you asked. Is that more, growing bigger? Or are we scaling far? Right? Is that proliferation? That's something, if those of you in the community work field might be familiar. It's not adapting the same exact program every single place, but it's creating conditions, right, for it to be able to thrive. And sometimes it's also just scaling and going deep, right? It's the relationship, the currency, the trust, right? I mean, a whole lot of what we've discussed today is around how do we build strong relationships with community members, and that takes time, right? So I think it's also important to identify and communicate with funders what kind of scale are we really going for, so that's also aligning expectations and the risks that you're ready to take.
Yeah, this also reminds me, actually we should apply the scaffolding concept to ourselves. Actually, in order to scale, what do we need support for? And I was also reminded because recently I talked to someone from hospitality. Then she was like, there's no point for you to scale if for let's say a restaurant or hotel to scale if their staff are not trained. Yeah, so she was like, invest in your training system. So then that means in order for a funder who wants to have 21 TTKC in the island, that kind of thing, right? Then it's like, okay, actually then you need to invest in the next 3 years, just focus on training. Developing training system, for example. Yeah, then that is a negotiation.
I hope this session was helpful, co-designing impact with communities, and wherever you are on the spectrum, I think it's always a starting point, and hopefully the conversations that you will have, the ones that you had today, will actually bring us closer to co-designing with communities. Thank you so much again for participating today.